Chapter 1. The pale orange glow from the security lights out in the yard filtered through the bars and wire mesh into the cell. A dog snuffled under the window until its handler called. He called softly, so it was early. He padded away, and then the clock struck. 3 times it reverberated like Joshua's trumpet, but it didn't knock down the walls or even tell the time. Of all the clocks in the world, the one above the gate in Durham jail is the most aggravating. Months it had taken me to solve the code. It had just clanged 3, so the next time would be either 1 for 3:15 or the hour of something else. Standing at the tiny, heavily barred window, naked and clammy, looking at the stars twinkling a million light years away and listening intently for the clock to strike again, the conversation I'd had with the governor came to mind from yesterday. He said I wasn't good enough to go into the main prison, but there wasn't anything he could do to prevent me being discharged, inferring he'd like to keep me in forever. He was a little, portly, arrogant fella, with snow-white hair and the dress sense of a mad budgie, and for all of his bluff and bluster, he was a rank coward at heart. He'd like to keep me as much as I'd like to stay. 3 years ago, I told him one morning during his rounds that if we'd been on a desert island, I'd be the governor, and he'd be getting me coconuts, and he would have to be lively about it. Well, we're not on a desert island, he smirked, squinting through the screws like a hooker in a rugby scrum. It's a good job for you we're not. A little officious prick like him wouldn't last a minute without the system, giving him backing and telling him what to do. Anyway, I'd more to think about than the likes of him. I could think about Pauline, for instance, my wife. The clanging of the clock in the middle of the night always brought on evil thoughts of her, and I hadn't thought about her for a while now. Very soon I'd have to see her, if I wanted to see my little lad. It would mean being nice, when really I'd like to sling her off the cliffs at Flamborough Head. But I had to see the lad. He'd be 3 in July, and according to my sister, he's a little beauty, with enough energy to occupy 100 nurses. I'd married his mother a week before I'd been arrested, after knowing each other about 2 months. She'd come on a day trip to Blackpool, met me, and didn't go back. It was the story of her life. She'd left home at 15, and had been living in a house in Cheadle-Hulme, Manchester, shared with 5 other young kids. And on the sick when we met, she was 20, and I was 27. She didn't give a fuck for anybody or anything, but herself and me. She wore 2-piece suits in bright pastel colours, lemon, pink, sky blue, and with her short white hair and flashing teeth, she was the sexiest bird I'd ever seen. Stripped off, she had the body of a middleweight fighter, all bunches of smooth muscle, and she was so strong she could prevent me from fucking her just by contracting certain muscles. She had herself a job the first day on a T-shirt print stall, had 6 printed with her name on, and packed the job in to start another job next door, this time selling hot dogs and beef burgers and earning 4 times more money. She turned my little flat into a home and guarded it like a mother hen. Didn't give me any pressure at all. Not until I'd been arrested. And that's all she's given me since. Pressure and more pressure, until 6 months ago, when I'd called it a day. She couldn't have been better off living with my parents while I'd been in, I'd thought. But after 2 weeks she'd gone out one day and didn't come back. 3 weeks later she turned up in her town of origin, Bolton. She came back to Wakefield, my hometown, and then turned up in Blackpool a month or 2 later. The only letters I received were asking for money for her and the baby, with no explanations at all. At the time we'd married, she thought she was pregnant. In fact, she'd told the judge she was, but I hadn't been sure. She had the baby in Blackpool, and I arranged to be transferred from here to Liverpool jail to make it easier to visit. She brought the baby, a boy she called Paul, a couple of times, and then sent another Dear John about the 8th. The prison padre in Liverpool was very understanding, said it was probably postnatal depression, and arranged a visit.